Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here, and today we are talking about Dead Space. So, I'm excited, but I'm very nervous. That's why I titled it that way. I am genuinely nervous about this Dead Space reboot. For anyone who's new to the channel or anything, typically I will wear a shirt of Dead Space, which is why I have this one here. It's the only one I have, but that shirt's a medium, and much like the days of the original Dead Space timeline, those days are dead. Those days are gone, and they are behind us. That's a medium. It's here in spirit, but I can't put that shirt on. So, went Resident Evil because for anyone who didn't know this, Dead Space 1 was actually directly inspired by Resident Evil 4. And I've heard some stuff where it may or may not be true that this Dead Space reboot was inspired by the recent Resident Evil remakes. So I was like, it's oddly fitting that Resident Evil, my favorite horror franchise, once again has breathed life into my second favorite horror franchise because I love Dead Space. Also, shout out to Dante's Inferno. I literally bought the movie because I just like visceral games. Like, I like that game, it was fine, but it wasn't Dead Space. So, Dead Space. I love Dead Space. I got both the movies. The really weird one with like 18 different animations for the story. The very first one, which I always thought was pretty cool and insanely gory. Then we have our games. So Dead Space 3. It was Dead Space 3. I feel like that was more of an EA thing. You know, the multiplayer stuff was actually okay. I was fine with the story. You know, a lot of people were kind of iffy on it. And I know that it was this weird thing where it was like Isaac wasn't as crazy. He wasn't really crazy anymore. Like, he did that. And I was like, you know, it was this weird in between where I was like, that makes sense for the story. You know, of course it happens because he's already dealt with it. Then we had Carver and he was dealing with it, even though you only got to see that during the like multiplayer co-op stuff. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was fine, and I thought it made sense for the story. And the really weird thing is that Dead Space 3 could have been just as good as 1 and 2 because the beginning of that game is phenomenal. When you have to go through like the different chips and stuff, all of that, I was like, I don't like, this is perfect. Like, Dead Space 3 is gonna be fine. And then you get to the planet and it was like, huh. There's like a couple of segments in there where it's like, oh, that's really good. Like the segment where, like, you know, it's the kids and stuff when you can't flash them with the lights. That's a good segment. I like that one for sure. But yeah, it didn't do the trick. It just, sadly, it did not do the trick. Then the DLC came out. It was amazing, and then they just killed it. And EA was like, Visceral Games, we're killing Dead Space. They were gonna do effing Star Wars. They killed that one too. So I don't know. That's why I hate EA so much. And like, they kill so many things that I love. Like Mirror's Edge should have been great, and then Catalyst came on. I was like, oh, it's gonna be great. And then it was Catalyst. I thought it was gonna be a sequel, and then it was Catalyst. So anyway, I love Dead Space. I got all the games. I've played every single one except for like the mobile one. That's literally the only Dead Space game that I have not owned. So I have Dead Space 3, 2, and 1, and Dead Space Extraction, which if you have not played, it's phenomenal. It is actually a really good game, and like I highly recommend it. Like all the Dead Space stuff, like they did such a good job with the universe and how it's like this is an actual universe. These are characters that exist within this very specific timeline. You have I think the first movie, yeah. So you have Downfall, Dead Space 1, and then Dead Space Extraction. Those three movies, this movie, and then those two games, all have a very cohesive story because they all take place within the span of the first game on the Ishimura. And I love the way they handled it. I love the way they handled that. Also, the characters from Dead Space 1 show up in the DLC for Dead Space 2. I thought that was going to mean something, which it could have in Dead Space 4 if they had done that, because I was very excited. I was like, oh, they continued the story from Extraction into the DLC for 2, and it made me super happy. I was surprised by some of the characters that were in it, because I thought it was going to be the one guy, but it was the older guy. That caught me off guard. Point is, I love Dead Space. Clearly, I really love Dead Space. The only thing I don't own physically is, like I said, the digital game that was like on iOS, I believe, which you can't even get anymore, and the comics, which fortunately, thanks to Dead Space Extraction, you can have like the digital version of those, and you can also find those on YouTube if you're interested. And I also never owned any of the books. I always wanted to, and then I think it was partly the fact that Dead Space kind of got canceled. I was just like, I don't want to love the franchise even more and just think about how hard they killed it. So I kind of stayed away from that just because I was like, dang, I don't want to buy it knowing that they killed it. But we officially have a reboot coming. Or a remake, I should say. It's not just a reboot, it is an actual remake. And so the main reason that I titled this that I'm a little bit worried is due to the fact that it's not the same people. Of course, if you don't know, Callisto Protocol is basically the Dead Space successor. It is done by, I can't remember his first name, but his last name is Schofield. So he was the, I believe, producer on the original Dead Space titles, possibly Extraction, I'm not 100% sure, but for sure, 1, 2, and 3 the main titles. And so, there are people there, Visceral Games as a company no longer exists. So all these people are spread out, they've gone to different companies, and some people are doing Callisto Protocol, some people are just off doing other things now. I keep touching, every time I move, I'm like, it does that. So I'm a little bit worried. Like, I'm excited. I've heard that it was, of course, the company that did Rogue Squadron. So, oddly enough, a Star Wars game. So, or not Rogue Squadron, just Squadrons. And so people like that game. People said it was well done. Of course, this being a remake makes it a little bit easier because it's like just take the first game, remake it, update graphics, of course, update some of the mechanics. They can add some things in from 2 and 3 and put them into this. Hopefully, only the greatest of things. So I would assume that they're going to add in complete control and zero gravity. That'll be really interesting to see in some of the segments. I feel like they use that a lot in the first game, and then it kind of dwindles down. Like, it gets less and less for sure. Like 3 basically only uses it, I think, in the very beginning segment when you can kind of go around space, and I think at the very end of the game technically they use it because you're like almost falling from space, and that's about it. I think they have like 2 segments in that whole third game where you actually do zero G stuff. It's been a minute since I played 3, but 1 and 2 for sure used it way more, and I think 2 really upped the game because they're like, oh, now we're gonna do full 360 combat in zero gravity. So they really upped the ante to be like, okay, there's like whole segments where you like travel through stuff and like turn off fans and things like that. So I expect to see a lot more of that in, Dead Space 1. I don't know how they're gonna do that basketball game. I wonder if they'll put that in there and like kind of add some new mechanics now that you can fully control yourself. That was super random, but clearly these are the things I think of. Like, that's how much I love Dead Space. I think of like, what are they gonna do with that random basketball thing? Like, are they gonna keep that trophy? What's gonna happen there? So I love Dead Space. I really want this to happen. But I am worried. I'm worried like what it's going to be like, how is it going to play out, what's going to happen to the franchise. Like, are they going to pull a Resident Evil where it's like, okay, hey, we know you guys love these, so we're remaking them. We're going to upgrade the graphics. We're going to technically, kind of change some of the story elements around to make the full series a little bit more cohesive. If you don't play the Resident Evil remakes, they just do some things, like they add in like little files here and there where it's like, oh, this thing seems to reference stuff that happened in like Resident Evil 4 and so on, but it never happened in Resident Evil 2. So they're technically adding new elements of the story to be like, all right, it's a bit more cohesive. Now Resident Evil, of course, at this point just came out with Resident Evil 8, and that's still excluding, even if you go main number titles, that's still excluding almost like half a dozen games, probably a dozen games. Honestly, there's so many Resident Evil games. So Dead Space is much simpler. It's Dead Space 1, 2, and 3, and then Dead Space Extraction as a prequel, sort of pseudo, and it's technically just a prequel, but that's it. It's really those 3 games, or those 4 games, and then I guess if you want to count the iOS game, and then that really weird, like the little mini puzzle game that came out before Dead Space 2, you got those as well. So we got like 6 games, and that's about it. It's not the same as Resident Evil, which spans decades and stuff, going all the way back, to like 96. It's not the same thing. It does, it's not going back to 96 and, changing all these amazing elements and characters and all that. Dead Space is 10 years old. It's old enough to have a remake, for sure. I mean, let's face it, they killed the franchise. All we wanted was a 4. I would have liked 4, and I would have been even more worried about that, but I don't know. I'm excited for it. I'm just worried. I don't know what's going to happen. They're going to remake this first one. Are they going to decide to continue the story and be like, all right, well, here's 4? Or is this remake really a reboot? Like, it's like, oh, it's a remake, but we're technically going to continue the story from here. Like, they're going to remake 1, and then they're going to remake 2, and they're going to change, like, bits and pieces. They're going to change the story. And then, who knows what will happen? Because 3 is the one that changed everything. And the funny thing is, I honestly believe if 3 was remade, they could make the same story, could easily work. The only thing that I think killed that game was the fact that they kind of ruined some of the horror elements. Excuse me. For one, technically, you have like a flashback, so you do start off fighting necromorphs, but when you start off with Isaac, you start off fighting humans. They could just cut all that out, or they could just make the outbreak faster, because they go through this whole segment where it's like it's humans, and then this explosion goes off, and then it's like, oh, now we're dealing with necromorphs. Just do that in the beginning. Just do it in the beginning. Have humans come out and it's like, oh crap, we're fighting humans. And then like 30 seconds in, you think you're dealing with humans, and then a bunch of necromorphs come in. And that's all they had to do. And just make it necromorphs and humans. That's what they should have done. And they do it a little bit at the end, but typically every time they brought in humans, it was like there were more humans than there were necromorphs, so you were still mostly dealing with human enemies. Just change the balance. That's about it. Because I feel like the story of 3 is fine. Like, the story makes sense. The gameplay is really where it falters a little bit. Like, them having the same ammo for every weapon, that was the worst choice. I think that was the biggest element of the game that just killed like all the horror tension. It was like, I could literally make any weapon I want, which works. That totally works perfectly as far as like the whole engineering aspect and all this. That's the whole element of all the weapons is Isaac is an engineer. He uses those weapons. They could literally just remake 3 and just be like, all right, instead of being doing something stupid where every weapon uses the same ammo, which is how you end up with like 1,000 effing bullets. Just make it where whatever weapons you get, it just works the same as Dead Space 1 and 2. Whatever weapons you combine, that's what you get ammo for. Everything still has separate ammo. You can just put the weapons together. It was super simple, and I don't know. I feel like it had to have been an EA thing because that's where some of the microtransaction stuff came in. But I don't know. It just seems weird. I feel like there's no way they could have made that much money from that element. So it just seemed weird. It seemed like that was EA kind of pushing a little bit more towards the action element, which is kind of what happened throughout the franchise. It was like 1, 2 was a bit more actiony, but it was still good. 2 was still really entertaining, and then 3 was definitely more action. And I feel like them throwing in the idea of being like, hey, what if all the ammo was the same? That was definitely that push to be like, just go like full action. Because once you have no need to really determine like, okay, do I use this weapon or do I use that weapon? Everything has the same ammo. All that tension is gone. You just pick the best weapon only, which is pretty much what we do anyway, but you don't always get that much ammo. Like, I'm not always going to get enough ammo from the line gun, which is personally my favorite because I just like, chopping off legs. You don't always get enough ammo, so you have to switch it up. That's all it would have taken, and 3 would have been, in my personal opinion, I feel like 3 would have been a whole lot better just from that one element alone. If they just made all the ammo separate, like whatever weapons you make, that's what ammo kind of comes up, and you just better hope you get enough, and that's pretty much it. Like, and it would even force you to change what weapons you make as you kind of go through the game, because it would be like, okay, well, unlimited ammo, I'll just stick with this. But if it goes kind of back and forth like a horror game should, where it's like, oh, I kind of got enough ammo, but not enough for like maybe a boss fight or something, you might have to switch things up a little bit. Like, there's just those little elements all come into play as soon as they bring back the different ammo types, and that's it. But that's the big question going forward. We got Dead Space 1 Remake. I am excited. I'm definitely going to buy it. Like, there's no chance I don't buy this. Because it's Dead Space. I have to experience that. Like, I just don't know. I have to experience Dead Space again. So, I'm excited for it, but I am very worried. I would love to know your thoughts on this. Of course, going forward, what do you think is going to happen? Because I think, let's face it, this is going to sell like crazy. Like, Dead Space 1 is coming back. Everyone that loved Dead Space is going to buy this game because Dead Space is perfection. It was so good. Then a remake of that, not them changing a million elements, changing little things here and there. It'll be interesting to see. Will Isaac have a voice in this first game? I'm very curious about that. Obviously, like I said, the random dumb things. What are they going to do with that basketball segment? Little stuff. So I want to know what's going to happen. If they're rebooting it, will they possibly add more stuff from Extraction to kind of fold into the narrative? They have a lot to work with, because obviously when Dead Space even first came out, like, they were very clear that it was like, here's a video game, here's a movie, here's comics, here's just novels you can read. Like, you can learn the entire history of like all of Dead Space. So they had a world. They wanted to have this be like a multimedia thing, and they did that pretty much from the very beginning. So I'm really curious how that's going to play out. Are they going to kind of reboot all that stuff? Will everything that is technically canon within the franchise stay canon, as far as all the old novels and stuff like that? Maybe you should pick those up now, because if they do decide to do that, maybe they'll start selling out all over the place. It'll be like, like Invincible type stuff. Every time a comic show comes out that's good, the comic just sells out. It could be like that. I don't know if people are going to go crazy over like Dead Space the novel, but it's such a famous franchise. It might actually happen. So I'm nervous. I'm excited, but I am nervous. It's different people doing it. I know they have the base of the original game. They've done Star Wars well, which is one of my favorite franchises, so I'm like, I guess I can trust them. I haven't played it myself, but everyone says like, yeah, it's a fun game. Plus, it's a very different experience from Dead Space, but they did it well. So I hope it comes out fantastic. I have to experience it, and I think I'll know. I think we'll all know just from the first trailer. As soon as that first trailer comes out, who knows if they'll do that at EA Play. I know it's been revealed, but should we expect it soon? Is a completely different conversation. So I don't know about that, but if we get something at EA Play, I think we'll know. I think we'll know just based on, as long as it's a gameplay trailer. If it's like classic pre-rendered just trailer, they'll be like, okay, yeah, that can be creepy. But I think our first like gameplay trailer of whatever this reboot/remake is really gonna look like and possibly play like we'll know. We have 3 games to go off of. Like, this is how he swings, this is how he stomps, this is how he shoots, this is what the world looks like. Like, it has a very specific concept, and I think we'll know. We'll know if they did it right from that first gameplay trailer. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm just nervous. I would love to know your thoughts on this. Like, it's coming back, so I'm excited. I have to, because it's Dead Space. I just wish we got 4. I wish they didn't kill off the company and just from EA is EA. Like, they do dumb stuff and then they ruin things, and then they're like, well, that thing kind of sucks now. People don't like it. It's like, you did that. You're the reason it's like that. and it's just very upsetting. I always thought it's funny that it's getting rebooted because I was thinking a lot. I don't know why. In the past like year or so, I was thinking a whole lot about Dead Space. Like, man, if I won like the multi-million-dollar jackpot, like if I won like hundreds of millions of dollars, I just throw it out there like, how much would it cost for me to buy Dead Space? Like, I would totally buy the rights to Dead Space, but I think it might be a little too late for that. So it is what it is. Not that I won the lottery, but still would like that though. I would still like to win the lottery, but at least we're getting Dead Space again. So half of that dream has come true. I'm just worried. Like if I controlled it, I would have just been like, please, everyone from Visceral Games. Somehow I'd try to get all those people back together. But I want to have faith in this new company. It's just one of my favorite things ever. And so I'm worried it's not going to be as good. It's not going to hold up as well. And like I said, we still don't know the future. The Remake 1, do they Remake 2? Do they Remake 3? Who knows? I doubt they'll remake Extraction, but everyone should play that. It's so good. It's on rails. I understand that, but it's like one of the best Wii games. Period. It's the Wii. It has like Wii Sports, but it ain't like that crazy of a system. It had like Okami. It had this. Bring back Mad World. I know nobody played that either, but dang, that was a good game. So I hope they do some more stuff with it. I hope we somehow get continuations of the story. I don't know if this will make enough money. And then once again, the story writers and stuff are gone. But that's the part that worries me. It's really more the future of it than where it's going to be from the very beginning. They have 1, 2, and 3. But where do they go from there? What are they going to do to this franchise? So, excited, worried, cautiously optimistic. Like I said, would love to know your thoughts on all things Dead Space. Whether you want to talk about this reboot coming up, you just want to reference cool things from Dead Space, please do that. I love Dead Space. I just don't care. Like, you can talk about anything Dead Space. Favorite moments from the games, least favorite moments from the games, everything Dead Space. Please put it down in the comment section below. But I do want to know your thoughts. How are you guys feeling? Like, it's official now. What should we expect? I want to be happy, but I have to be scared. Just a tiny bit. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.